Now look at that. Oh, what a kick! Right to the nose!
Off his out!
Now, there are some wrestlers who will do just about anything to finish off a match, even after being unconscious in the ring. Join us now as WrestleAmy looks at wrestlers who finished a match after being unconscious. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Number 1. Mick Foley. Sadly, Mick Foley and concussions are synonymous with each other, which is sad since it's a big reason Foley had to retire from the ring early in his career. In his autobiography, Have a Nice Day, A Tale of Blood and Sweat Socks, the former WWE champion said that he had 8 confirmed concussions throughout his career. However, the concussion that hurt the most came during his memorable Hell in a Cell match against The Undertaker at 1998 King of the Ring. Now, you may be thinking it came from the unforgettable spot of Taker tossing Mick Foley off the cage through the announcer's table, but surprisingly no. That was a planned spot, so Foley had time to brace for the impact. However, the concussion came after an unplanned spot. That spot was Taker chokeslamming Foley right through the cage roof. Like everyone on this list, Foley has no memory of anything following this scary moment, and he was out for 42 seconds. It's amazing that Foley walked out in one piece because he had also lost a tooth, suffered a dislocated jaw and shoulder in the legendary match. As much pain as Foley was in once the bell rang, he told Forbes that he doesn't regret doing this match. It's the match that put him on the map as a certified WWE star, and it cemented his legacy in the books of pro wrestling. It was definitely a respected and valuable property, but I was kind of just a really hardworking journeyman up until that match. I don't know if I would have had the victory over The Rock for the WWE title had it not been for that match. Foley has plenty of memorable matches on his resume, though it is possible that Vince McMahon wouldn't have booked him as a main event star if it wasn't for that defining moment. Number 2. Kurt Angle. The triple threat match between Kurt Angle, Triple H and The Rock is a great match. It's just a shame that Kurt Angle doesn't remember it. That's thanks to the infamous spot where Triple H was supposed to put Kurt through the announcer's table with a pedigree, but the table accidentally broke under them and the fall was not pretty. Kurt Angle was knocked out and that was supposed to be the plan, except the knockout was real. Stephanie, Triple H and The Rock had to guide Kurt Angle throughout the remainder of the match, and in fact if you look closely you can see Triple H and The Rock calling out spots for Kurt Angle. This was the first time that Kurt Angle had a real concussion, and the WWE Hall of Famer recalled a scary experience on the Kurt Angle show.
The story of the match was Triple H had to take me out at the beginning because he was so angry at me for kissing Stephanie, and so we had to do a table spot. I wasn't supposed to get knocked out for real. It was supposed to be a work, and unfortunately the table gave way early, and Triple H had my arms behind my back with his pedigree finish, and he didn't have time to let my arms go so I could protect myself. So the table gave way early and I got knocked out for real. This was a nightmare because the match was structured. I was supposed to get knocked out, pretend, and then I was going to come back and join in with Stephanie and get involved in the match. Brock was kicking Triple H's ass. Yeah. So that was the story of the match. I was going to get knocked out early. I was going to come back 10 minutes later and wrestle in the match, and the finish was the finish, which it was The Rock going over. But the match told a great story. I don't remember any of it, but it was put together very well. But I have no recollection of it. I did watch it back, and you could tell I was completely out of it. You could tell they were calling spots to me if you look very closely. I don't have any recollection of the match. I remember up until the table spot, and then my memory came back when I was in the hospital with an oxygen mask on.
Kurt has had plenty of other nerve-wracking moments throughout his long career, but it's a miracle how the former WWE champion was still able to work a great match despite mainly being out of it during his rookie year. Number 3. Brock Lesnar. On March 30th, 2003, it was supposed to be Brock Lesnar officially crowned as the WWE's next big thing. Now, granted, Lesnar came into his match against Kurt Angle with an impressive resume, as he already had a memorable bout against The Rock and The Undertaker, but WWE was trying to put over Brock Lesnar as the face of the company, and there was no better way to solidify that with a win in the main event of WrestleMania. And everything seemed to be going to plan. Kurt and Brock were having an excellent match, and then Brock decided to go on the top rope, and well, we all know what happened after this. Brock hit the nastiest looking shooting star press in WWE history on himself. Immediately, it was clear that something wasn't right for the former WWE champion. In fact, it seemed that Brock Lesnar could have broken his neck. Luckily, Brock didn't and managed to finish the match as planned, but the Beast wasn't alright as he was knocked for a loop because of that shooting star press. The crazy thing is that Brock Lesnar has done a shooting star press flawlessly before, and there's compilations of Lesnar doing the move perfectly to a number of WWE stars. But what happened at WrestleMania 19 was that Brock's boot slipped off the wet rope. He under-rotated the move, and as you can see, he crashed on the mat hard. Lesnar won the match, but it was clear he wasn't right in the head. He greatly suffered the effects of a concussion and was taken to the hospital after he got backstage, even at one point getting into a fight. And Brock Lesnar vs Kurt Angle is still considered one of the best WrestleMania main events in the show's history, despite the horrific botch. It's also insane to think that this could have been Lesnar's final match, as that shooting star press botch could have been a serious career ender. Number 4. Bubba Ray Dudley. Who could forget the first ever Raw Roulette? It had a Showgirls match between William Regal and Goldust, murder accusations, and the first ever Raw TLC match. And the TLC match was truly an incredible match that made up for a dreadful show that came before it. Now, TLC matches are rather dangerous, so it's not unheard of performers having scars coming out of this gimmick match. However, for Bubba Ray Dudley, he received a concussion during the match. The WWE Hall of Famer received a concussion from Chris Jericho after a bulldog from the ladder as Jericho spiked Dudley and he didn't move for minutes. Like Kurt, Bubba was knocked out and doesn't seem to remember a single moment from this match. Apparently, Chris Jericho had to remind Bubba of his spots throughout the rest of the match. Jericho and Bubba discussed the match on the Talk is Jericho podcast, and Bubba was so out of it that when Jericho told him to climb the ladder, Bubba's response was, "How'd you climb a ladder?" But that wasn't the only time that Bubba didn't know how to do something in a match, as Chris told Bubba to do a Bubba Bomb and he forgot how he did his own move. Other than his unfortunate concussion, the match went off without any other problems, and continued to highlight the risks these men and women put their bodies through just for entertainment. Number 5. Goldberg. This match was doomed before the bell even rang. Never mind the fact that Taker and Goldberg were in the twilight years of their careers, but Goldberg has been never known to be the best worker in pro wrestling. That isn't to say that Goldberg didn't have good matches on his resume, but the WCW legend has a history of being reckless. Insert Bret Hart quote here. However, one of the most irresponsible things that Goldberg did was come into the match with a concussion. The first concussion came before Goldberg even hit the ring, as he hit his head on the locker room door as he does as his pre-match ritual. He also knocked himself out during the match, and the end result turned his bout with Taker into a dangerous situation where both men could have been paralyzed because of the numerous botches that took place. Now, to Goldberg's credit, he did take responsibility for the match being such a disaster, and had this match take place without Goldberg's concussion, then it definitely would have been better. It wouldn't have been a classic by any means, but at least Taker and Goldberg would have went home without any major injuries. Number 6. Kairi Sane. Remember when we said that TLC matches are dangerous? It's a wonder that more performers weren't knocked out during this match. This was the first ever women's TLC tag team match and it went off the rails pretty quickly, but the performer that got the worst out of it was Kairi Sane, who was out of it at the tail end of the match. That could have been more noticeable when Charlotte Flair hit a weak spear and then struggled really hard to get Sane up for a powerbomb through a table. Reportedly, Sane was out following an accidental chair shot to the head from Charlotte Flair. Sane was able to tell her tag team partner Asuka, and she was unable to guide her through the rest of the match. But Becky also noticed something wasn't right with Sane and pushed her under the mat to keep her safe. It's a wonder that Sane didn't suffer a serious injury, as the match was brutal, but thankfully it was just a concussion that kept her on the sidelines for a few weeks and she was able to make her grand return. Number 7. William Regal. Now, Kane is usually known as a safe worker, but it's pro wrestling, so accidents can happen. What's interesting about this is that Kane knocked out William Regal due to a move that doesn't target the head. It was a body slam. During the match, Kane gave Regal the very move and he instantly went limp. You can see Kane checking to make sure that Regal was okay before he went for the cover. And according to Regal during their Gentleman Villain podcast, this was an out-of-body experience that revealed he had a heart problem.
There was a pay-per-view for WWE from, I believe it was Montreal, where there was myself and Lance Storm against Kane and RVD, where I got slammed. At the time, I didn't realise I had a heart problem, and I had an out-of-body experience where I was actually floating above myself, thinking I wished I could sleep this well at night. So I've read the studies from Oxford when they say you can actually not be right and still have these out-of-body experiences, which I think is, I hate to break this to anybody, but if you actually study the dying and the white light calling me, really your brain's still functioning like a chicken having its head cut off. So I was above myself looking down on Nick Patrick and Kane going, "Are you okay, Steve?" and me going, "Leave me alone." Luckily they didn't let me wrestle the next night in Toronto, and then I found out that I had a heart problem.
Regal managed to recover and successfully retain the WWE World Tag Team titles. In some ways, Regal getting knocked out here was a good thing, as he was able to find out about a serious condition that could have been worse had it gone unnoticed. Hopefully, Regal gave Kane a box of chocolates for inadvertently saving his life. Number 8. Drew McIntyre. And Drew McIntyre isn't particularly known for being in a ladder match, but being knocked out by Kofi Kingston could be a good reason why. The Chosen One competed in the 2010 Money in the Bank ladder match, and Kofi did a boom leg drop that sent McIntyre crashing through the announcer's table. However, Kofi miscalculated the distance and he accidentally landed on McIntyre's head. The former Universal Champion was out of the match for 15 minutes. McIntyre came back for his final spot where Kane chokeslammed him right off the ladder. Luckily for him, there was no concussion afterwards, nor did it seem that the competitors had to change some spots due to Drew being completely out of it. Number 9. The Miz. John Cena vs The Miz is considered one of the worst WrestleMania events of all time. Despite how disappointing the match was, there's no denying how tough The Miz really is. This isn't the first time that the guy's been knocked out in a match. However, him being knocked out virtually went unnoticed since it was part of the story. The Miz's lights went out when Cena speared him onto the concrete floor. The Miz was out cold, but so was John Cena. The match was supposed to end in a double countout, and obviously, The Miz wasn't really supposed to be knocked out, but Miz's professionalism should be commented on as he continued on with the rematch with Cena and won. It's just a shame that The Miz himself doesn't remember a thing about the WrestleMania match he main evented. He revealed on the Unbreakable podcast that this is a hard match for him to watch again. Say what you want about The Miz, but there's a reason that this guy has been with the company for over 20 years. He's reliable and a very hard worker. And number 10, The Undertaker. The Undertaker and Brock Lesnar have had a legendary rivalry. The Hell in a Cell match at 2002 remains their very best, but these two consistently had great matches against one another. This included their WrestleMania 30 bout. One of the most shocking moments in WWE history happened as Brock Lesnar managed to defeat The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak. However, fans may have not noticed during the match that The Undertaker got concussed within 5 to 10 minutes of the match. Taker and Brock had a match that was nearly 35 minutes. That meant Taker continued to compete for 20 minutes plus with a really bad concussion. It's astounding that Taker got all of his spots correct despite being notably slower than usual. The crazy thing is that Taker is usually the one to call all of the spots, so once Taker was caught in a daze, there was some confusion between Brock and Taker for a good minute or two. Like most wrestlers on this list, Taker has virtually no memory of this match whatsoever. He explained during an interview with Chris Van Vliet that the last thing he could remember that day was before 2 PM. My last memory of that day happened around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Michelle had come backstage to check to see me. Then I told her because I didn't know until 30 minutes before that we were going to break the streak. I got to the building that day thinking I was going over. So I just got the news that we're going to break the streak tonight. I remember telling her, the next thing that I remember, I'm in hospital at like 4:30 in the morning. When you get concussed like that, they come in every 5 minutes. They want you to know your name, your birthday, where you're at, and everything like that. It was crazy, because evidently, I knew who she was, but I had no clue who I was. They asked me, "Sir, can you tell me your name? What year were you born? Where are you?" I said, hospital? This happened several times, but so evidently I knew who Michelle was. They left me and I was like, "Come here." She goes, "Yeah." I said, "What's my name?" She says, "Babe, I can't cheat for you on this. What's my name? Just tell me my name." The Taker has said in other interviews that he isn't upset that he couldn't remember the match. He just wished he didn't get concussed, since he's the one usually calling his matches. But there you have it, folks. WWE wrestlers who managed to finish a match after being concussed. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.